Hi folks, today's video is a follow-up really from the one I did yesterday about medium output humbucker pickups into high gain. And I didn't do any sound samples or anything with it, but maybe I should have, and I'll take that on board. But what I'm going to do today is actually talk about one of those pickups in particular, which has been my favourite humbucker pickup for years. Certainly since the early 1990s, and it's fitted in this guitar in the bridge, and it's a Dimarzio PAF Pro. Now, when you go onto the Dimarzio website, this is one that they specify as excellent as a neck pickup, and I will agree it's an excellent neck pickup. But I've got this in the bridge, and there's a number of reasons. First of all, as a kid growing up, I was very aware of this pickup, and it's kind of gone by the wayside now. Not many people seem to talk about it, and they certainly don't have many artists now really endorsing that pickup. But back then, late 80s, early 90s, it was everywhere. And the first thing that really drew my attention to it was I was very aware that it was fitted in the initial production of the Ibanez JEMs. I think it was in Steve Vai's green Mini Charvel that he had. I think that's when it was developed, around 1985. And it was also fitted in all the Paul Gilbert Ibanez at the time, the PGMs, those white ones with the F-hole painted on. So they were really everywhere. Now, at the time, they were designed as a pickup for people who used huge amounts of effects. It was the late 80s after all. Lots of gain, lots of effects, and it was designed to really cut through the mix. Now, what happened was, after that, we got into the 2000s and that era of guitaring kind of disappeared. We were into the grunge and Britpop and things like that. So having huge rack effects disappeared as well, and they still have to a point. But what we have now are huge amounts of modelers and a plethora of high gain amps, and I personally feel that this pickup deserves a bit of a renaissance because it perfectly suits today's high gain world. And I'm going to give you some sound samples and explain why I think this. Now, again, the last video I did have lots of people commenting and debating amongst themselves, and that is absolutely brilliant. So keep up with that. That just makes my day. And I try and reply to as many as I can. And you know, likes and subscribes are always very welcome. Anyway, this guitar is nothing overly special. It's just an Indonesian made Ibanez RG with the reverse headstock. And like I said, this has been my kind of go-to workhorse for many a year. As you see, the neck's even a bit grotty. But I love this guitar. And what I found was, when I'm playing these amps with a lot of gain, especially the PV Ultra Plus, which is a very dense, quite a dark amp. It doesn't have a huge amount of brightness to it. The presence isn't there. It doesn't have a presence knob. Unless you switch off the reverb tank and unplug it, then the reverb knob turns into a presence. Don't ask me why, but it does. But I've not done that. It's completely stock. And it's an amazing high gain amp. But what I've found is when I use something like a guitar with my Seymour Duncan JB in it, it just comes out very muddy and boxy. It doesn't really have a lot of presence to it. And this can be a very common thing now when using a lot of gain, as things seem to get tightened up and closed down. And that's what this pickup was designed for. Now, the standard thing people do is they put a boost in, like a Boss SD1 or a Tube Screamer, which bump the mids up, shelve off the low end, and kind of keep the treble high as well, SD1 especially. And I love that. But in actual fact, this pickup really does the same. Now, it is not a high output pickup. It's only an 8.4 kilo ohm. So it's in the medium output pickup category. However, that doesn't matter. When you're running high gain, you've got more than enough gain to compensate. What you look for is this punch and clarity. Less low end, again, you can generate as much low end as you really want with amplifiers and modelers and modern distortion pedals now. That's not a problem. So less bass, that's great. This is a very low in the bass output pickup, but it means it stays very tight. It's quite a high mid-range output and it's quite a bright output. It doesn't get brittle, but it has a real clarity, and that's why they say it works really well as a neck pickup, and I will agree with that. However, modern day amps, and it keeps coming back to this high gain situation, modern day amps, it really works well as a bridge pickup, and this is where I love it the most. So I'm just going to use the amp. I've got a little touch of delay, that's it, no boosts, nothing else. 3-channel amp, and you might be able to see when I change channel it changes colour at the back there. You maybe can't see that very well today, it's a bit dark, but not to worry. Right, first thing is clean. I better switch it on. There we go. So into the amp, I'm running into this PV cabinet here and also into the Harley Benton cabinet behind me. So we've got a mixture of some vintage 30s there and PV's own in this one here. And some clean sounds off a humbucker pickup. I'll put new strings on so it's a bit twangy, a bit piano-like. But for my tone settings there, the low is actually about 2 o'clock, the mid-range is backed off to about 11 o'clock, and the high is at 1 o'clock. So it's got a fair bit of bass loaded onto the amp, but so you'll hear that that isn't a low, boomy, rumbly sound. It is very, very sharp, very abrupt. And if you're wanting to play something nice and warm and clean, maybe not so ideal, but you can roll off the tone pot. So it is a really nice clean and it rolls off, and because it's got such a lot of top end, I've personally felt I didn't need to have a treble bleed circuit put into this guitar. Because it's bright enough, even with the volume rolled back, which does darken the sound. Anyway, I'm here to talk about the higher gain stuff. So, crunch channel, I've deliberately set the crunch level fairly high, but again, we're not talking of a seriously high output pickup. When you think tone zones or evolutions are way, way hotter and much, much, much heavier in the low end. But we're talking high gain amps. You don't want huge amounts of bass response. And this is where this pickup is just a winner. It's like having the EQ of an overdrive without the added gain. I think that's probably the clearest way of putting it. Crunch channel. Now, in the room, that might be coming across, it might, even in that camera, it might be coming across as quite aggressive and bright. And I will agree that it is quite bright. But in all honesty, that's what you're really looking for. That's what works, and it just carries through in a band. So, like I said, Paul Gilbert would use this, and you can hear that spank that his sound had, that kind of... I'll try not to get copyright, but it's got that punch without this flub that you get with a lot of pickups. And I've got a guitar there, an Ibanez with the Dimarzio Tone Zone, and it is terrible for this kind of flubby low end. It just doesn't have this punch, and I very, very rarely use the guitar live because of it. And it's a shame, because it's an absolutely beautiful guitar to play. And I'm not going to change it out because it's fantastic for lead playing. But this, for a rhythm sound, has just got this real aggressive punch without the flub. Like I said, it's almost like having the EQ of an SD1 without the added gain. So if you've got plenty gain, you don't need it. And because I said it's a very bright pickup, and we're running a lot of gain in that amp. We're talking at about 3 o'clock on the gain level, so high, and the ultra gain is engaged as well. So it's still able to roll back. But it's, again, it's keeping some clarity. And I don't know if it was Evolutions at the time that were used when Steve Vai recorded Passion and Warfare, but I'm really not sure. I think it could have been the PAF Pros on it as well, because that kind of, trying to remember the riff. I'm tuned to D as well, so it's going to be different. But that part is tight, and it's not doing that whoomph that you get with a lot of low end in your pickup. So it does that, and even when you just tap on like that, you're not getting this low end that rumbles through. So what I'll do is I'll go to absolutely insane amounts of gain into the lead channel of this. Whew. You'll see the little thing went red there. I just love that. as you hear, there is an awful lot of gain there. Possibly, for me, maybe too much. I tend to stick to the crunch channel on this, and if I need a little more, I will boost that. But for this sake, I'm just going to go all out and use all the gain. But you can with this pickup, and it still retains this tightness. And I'll do some down picking kind of stuff. And it just has this real thump, which live, that locks in with your drummer, it locks in with the bass. If you've got that going alongside your bass drum, just dunk, 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 locked in tight, it's a real wall of sound. It adds this punch. And I keep talking about this punch and clarity, but to play live, that's it. And that's with no boosts, no extra gain on. So even although that's a medium output pickup, it has more than enough output if you're running high gain. So last thing, Boss SD1 in on top of a stupid amount of gain, and you will still hear, we still have this clarity. And because it's got this mid hump, you really don't need to add any boosts or levels to be heard for your solos. Oh, get that off again. So you can play lead with this output of gain, this output from a pickup, because it's already got this mid hump. And even with that amount of gain, you know, that's not bad considering it goes from this to that. Anyway, that's it. I'll put a link in the description below for the Dimarzio PAF Pro. I don't really like to spend a lot of time talking about individual pickups because it really depends on what rig you're using. However, if you're using a lot of gain, I thought it's worthy of a follow-up to say, this one I like, this one works for me. So thank you very much. I'll have something for you again very, very soon. And please like and subscribe. Bye bye.